Hello, I'm Laura Zervos, and I'm a registered dietitian and licensed nutritionist, and I'm really happy to be here today for Lending Hearts, presenting a nutrition program. So excited. It's July here where I live, so the farmers markets are up and running. They've been running here in Western Pennsylvania. They run anywhere from the end of May to the end of October. So we're real lucky. And what's great about the farmers markets is different times of the year, of course, they're going to have different produce. And we draw from not only our state, but neighboring state of Ohio and a little far out, further out to the eastern side of our state. So it's really exciting to see what is coming in from the different farmers in the different areas. And if you haven't been to a farmer's market recently, they've really changed a lot. And you still find this. So where I live, we're lucky enough to have a farmer's market pretty much every day of the week in the neighboring communities by me. So all within 5 to 10 minutes of me. So it's really nice, not just fruits and vegetables anymore, right? So now we're starting to see, in addition to fruits and vegetables, we see honey, local honey, which is fantastic, local eggs, local milk products like different cheeses. Some farmers even bring some, maybe some pork products or fresh meats that they might have, beef, all kinds of things, lamb, specialty things too as well, locally raised chicken. So we're really excited to have some of these things. And in addition to that, you'll even see some fresh flowers. And in the fall, we'll start to see some other things. Almost have to have another fall class to see some of the offerings that they have. Then you'll see a lot of, at the beginning of the farmers market season, we'll see a lot of the greens, things that like to grow in the cool weather, like spinach, lettuce, arugula, asparagus. Asparagus actually will have all summer long. But in addition to that, in the fall, you'll start to see things like sorrel and different things that we don't see all the time, and different assorted greens, the microgreens, you could see those all year long. But farmers market, it's great because you get to interact with the farmer. I always like to establish a relationship. When is such and such going to be the best? When is this vegetable going to be great? What do you think of some of the fruits now? What are you doing for pest management with your vegetables? Some of them are organic. Some of them are non-GMO. Some of them will tell you that they are as close to organic as you can get without the certification, because that certification is very expensive, especially to farmers. Small farmers. So it's good to talk to them about what they're doing so you can make a wise choice. And, it's excellent to support them. And like I said, local to our area, maybe an hour away, some of the farms. So, really reducing that footprint, it's exciting to be a part of that, and to take advantage of these things at this time. And now we even see some food trucks here, which is exciting, right? And some farmers have even done some forward integration, which not only are they growing things, but they're also have a food truck, and they're selling some of the end products as well. So that's exciting to see. Always like to support that. Some of the farmers that grow tomatoes are selling some of their sauces, and even labeling them, and not just you'll see them in the grocery stores as well. So very exciting for them. And different products, even soap. I've seen soap, locally made things like that. So really happy to take a part of that. Today, we're going to talk about some of the things that I found at the farmer's market yesterday, and some things that I couldn't find at the farmer's market, but I happen to have in my garden, and I'd love to share with you some of the things that are coming up right now. We're going to talk about the actual products themselves, how to take advantage of them, how to select them, make a few dishes today, and how to get the most out of every plant, right? So today, we have rising prices at the grocery store. And it's important to utilize every part of the vegetable that we can. We don't want to waste anything, right? And, with a background in culinary arts, that's what we learn first, right? Chefs are very good at product utilization and using a product for everything that it's worth, plus repurposing that food so we could keep on using it and not have any waste. One thing that's so frustrating is having that waste in our refrigerator and throwing something away. It breaks my heart. It happens to all of us. So I always talk about, if you've ever been to one of my meal planning classes and menu planning for the week, not just writing down on your schedule or on your menu for the week, oh, Monday pork roast, Tuesday tacos, Wednesday salmon, Thursday chicken breast, and Friday, arugula and fettuccine and mushroom and hazelnut fettuccine. So more than that, right? When you have your salmon, okay, the day that I have salmon, I'm going to have asparagus and red skins. The day that I have the chicken breast, I'm going to have green beans and rice. Just being very thorough like that. So when you make your list, you have the green beans on your list, you have the asparagus, you have the red skins, and they get used that week. A lot of us make that mistake when we go to the farmer's market or we go to the produce section. We're overwhelmed, right? It's the first section of the grocery store. Everything is arranged so beautifully, and you just start throwing things in your cart. Well, when is the next time you're going to go grocery shopping, and how long can these things last? So it's good to shop for that 7-day period. Use the things that are most perishable first, versus randomly throwing things in the cart. If you don't have a plan, if they're not on the menu for that week, sometimes they get wasted. Unless you're really good about going into your produce drawer every week and saying, okay, I'll make this, that, or the other. So it's really good. If you have to have a plan, if you have a plan, they'll get in your cart, and then they'll get on your they'll get into your produce bin, and they'll get to the table. And that way you're ensuring, right? It's all about the end goal is getting those 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And it just doesn't happen. It takes a lot of effort, right? We're trying to get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day for the health benefits, for the antioxidants, for the phytonutrients and compounds. And we're going to discuss some of those today. But the end goal is getting 5 of those. And what happens when you get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables and whole grains? You're getting the 25 to 35 grams of fiber that our gut needs every day. If you don't have a plan for that, it just doesn't happen. So, sometimes I look at some of the logs that my clients have, and we to the grams of takes a lot of on your part. So let's get started. Like I said, excited today. Our first plant, and hopefully I'll introduce you to some vegetables that maybe you have seen, but were afraid to try for whatever reason, or didn't know what to do with it when you got home. So maybe it's gone to waste. So let's try to find a way to purpose some of those vegetables. The first thing that we're going to make today is a roast eggplant in tomato sauce. I love this side dish, one, because eggplants are wonderful, right? 20 calories per cup, about 5 grams of carb, and about 2.5 grams of fiber. So there we go, bringing the carb count down, increasing the fiber, just excellent. And since they are purple, and I have today an Asian eggplant, I like the Asian eggplants. I like the other ones too. I like the one variety that we grow here at home is called a Black Beauty. Beautiful eggplant. It gives you a nice slice, a nice round circle slice, or if you slice it the other way, a big rectangle. What's nice about the Asian eggplants, very little seed development in here. So it makes them, do you ever have eggplant? Sometimes it has that bitter taste, especially near the skin. So this is great because they're a lot more, lot less bitter than the other ones. Let me just crank this up here to make sure you can hear me well enough. So a lot less bitter, a lot more tender, and you still get the same nutrients as the other one. Some of the products are called Globe. I've also seen the Black Beauty variety. So what we're going to do today is, first, before we cut up our eggplants, we're going to make a little bit of a sauce. This is the sauce that we're going to have, and it's olive oil, sauteed onions, and garlic, and then we're going to add some tomato paste. So I'm going to get that started before we cut our eggplant, so everything comes out at the same time. So let me just get this going. Olive oil. Okay. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to have my back to you. Okay, so we have our olive oil in the skillet and that's going to heat up. And then we're going to add some onions and garlic. We're going to add the garlic after we add our onions so it doesn't get a bitter taste. I've already peeled 2 nice cloves, and I think I've showed you before, I have a very nice slicer that slices them nice and paper thin, which is a real nice, it's a nice feature actually, because why? Because it's increasing the surface area, right? So if we have if we have large pieces of garlic, you have the 2 ends that have the surface area, but you have all that in between, right? So the thinner that we slice it, the more surface area per piece. Tons of flavor. I've noticed a huge difference since I bought this, because I always would slice it pretty thin, right? But this gets it razor thin, a lot more taste that you get from it. And I'll show you what those slices look like when I say thin. Okay, so we're talking like, you know, paper thin, so thin, so good. So let's get our onions started in here. And what we're doing here, and I'll turn that down so it's not too noisy. What we want to do is cook the onions. We're going to caramelize them, right, to bring out that sweetness. Once they get tender, that's when we're going to add our garlic to that. And then we're going to make our sauce and put it all together. So I'm going to get the, we'll start slicing up our onion, our eggplant. But the nice thing about having the garlic in there as well too is it adds a ton of flavor. So does the caramelized onions. This dish would not be the same without either of those. So let me adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Here's my garlic, and I've already washed these. Remember, you want to wash them really well, and then just discard the ends, so we don't need that end. I'll cut off the bottom end too. And what I love about this dish is that you can add, we could add zucchini to this, we could add potatoes, so many different things. You'll see this in the Mediterranean a lot. And what I like to do is, need a sharper knife. What I like to do is get them about this size, about 1.5 inches. And if it's a really large one, we could even cut it in half again. And we're going to take a 9x13 baking sheet that I've already sprayed with some Pam, and we're just going to add them to there. So if I have some bigger pieces, I'm just going to put them in there. And if, sometimes I don't have enough of this zucchini at the beginning of the season. I don't have enough of this zucchini or this eggplant, so I will add zucchini. I will also add potatoes. So many variations on a simple dish. This one out. And you can see, look at the seed development here compared to the Globe or the Black Beauty eggplant. Very little seed development. So it's going to be a very nice, tender and non-bitter product. And we're just going to get them all in here. I like to serve this dish. This goes really well with like a light fish or chicken dish, especially fish. Sometimes when I serve my family fish, the people with the heartier appetites are not full and they're running to the pantry right after dinner. So if I make a heavier side, like a vegetable that's especially eggplant, and even though it's so low in calories and carbohydrate, it's very filling, especially when you have the tomato sauce. So try to get them about the same size. And we don't need that one. So, and I can smell the onions. I'm just going to give them a little flip. And this is a really easy dish too, because it does go in the oven for a while. So hopefully we'll get to finish it today since we have a short class. All right, and I'm going to add my garlic. give it a little stir. All right, so let me show you what this looks like. So we just have the eggplant all cut up in a nice 9 by 13 dish, and it's ready to go. You don't have to do the pan. I just like to do that for easier cleanup. And I have a small container of the small can of tomato paste. So that's the tomato product that we're going to use with this today. And once our onions get a little softer, we're going to assemble all of that together. So we're going to move on to our next item that we have, which is the asparagus and our roast beets, because they take a little bit of time too. So let's get started. And this asparagus is actually from my garden. And asparagus is wonderful, powerful antioxidants. Quercetin is in here, very strong anti-inflammatory properties. So what happens with asparagus, if you've ever tried to grow it at home, is that the first year you plant it, the first year that it comes up, you don't pick it, right? You discard it. And I think you do that for the second year too. Third year you pick it and it starts coming up, you should get probably about 3 to 4 spears every day. So what I do is I cut the spears, usually cut them when I guess they're about 12 inches. And I put them in the refrigerator in a glass of water. And that's how you'll usually see them at the produce section in your grocery store. They'll be in, they have the cut side in water. So when you get them home, you're always going to want to make a fresh cut there. If you, whenever you're harvesting it, you'll notice you'll cut it with a sharp knife and you'll come up from the bottom of the shaft and you will keep going, take your knife and try to just see, when it starts to get tender, because that very bottom part is almost pure fiber, right? It's hard. It's very hard to cut into, and we're not going to be able to eat that. It's not going to be digested. So you want to make sure that you cut from there. And then if you, once you get it in the kitchen, if you find that it's still hard at the bottom, you could make another, cut. So we just check on our onions. And they're getting nice and brown. Last one. We'll let that go another minute and then we'll start our sauce. So we could start doing, I'm just going to set these on our sheet pan. And then we will start with our beets. So let me add our tomato paste to this first. And what this is going to do, whenever you add the tomato paste to this, you might need to add a little bit more olive oil. Just keep stirring it around, and it's going to make a nice sauce. I have several dishes that I use this base for, all vegetable dishes. Very nice. What happens is, and you'll notice, this is when you'll know that it's done too. So you start cooking it, and you know how when you take out the tomatoes out of the tomato paste, you've got a bright, nice red color. Once we start cooking and that it starts to change, once it's orange, that's when you know that it's ready and it's done. It totally changes the taste, gets out of most of the acidity. So you're ended up with a real nice product. So what we do here now is with our onions and garlic and olive oil, which is, who doesn't love that combination? We add our tomato paste and we make a little sauce. And so I used 1 can, I believe that's an 8-ounce can, the smaller one. We'd use 1 can for probably, I have about, I would say 2 pounds of Asian eggplants. And I definitely used 1 pound of onion, usually 1 large Spanish onion, 1 large yellow onion, the size of a softball. Rule of thumb, that's about 1 pound. So try it sometime when you're at the grocery store, when you have the scale, stick them in there. They usually average 1 pound. And I like to go by weight or cup. When I'm doing my recipes too, when it says a medium onion or a small onion, what does that mean, right? So you're always more accurate when we know, what is it? Is it a cup? Is it a half pound? Is it a pound? And that way we could always measure it and be sure what we're doing, right? Because when you do that, then you're consistent and your product is always going to come out the same. So we don't want any guesswork. And you could just see But it's already starting to turn that orange color for me. And onions, I have some that are completely caramelized and some that are just soft. And it's okay. They could, if you have that combination, that's fine. You know, as long as they're soft, they're going to be in the oven for close to an hour. We'll take them out before class is over just to see what they look like. But right now I've got that. Let's get back to this. So let me bring that over. All right, so let me bring the eggplant over. Let's see here. And I started to say, and then we think something was getting ahead of me, that, you know, the eggplants are high in the anthocyanins, and that's what gives it that nice purple color. A lot of that is present in the skin. And that's the same with some of the other things that we're going to talk about today too. Just going to want to spread it right over our eggplant like this. And we're also going to add just a little bit of water. Not too much. We don't want to dilute this. Just mix it all together. Sometimes I just leave it right on top too. And like I said, we could add zucchini, we could add potatoes. If you add potatoes, it's going to take a little bit longer, but all those things will work really nicely. And then we're going to just sprinkle it with a little bit of kosher salt and set that aside. And we're going to do this in the oven. I like to cover it for the first part of the cooking. You can, just because I don't want it to dry out right away. That way it just leaves me a little bit more time. You know, it'll cook, get a little bit tender. Then I like to remove the lid for probably the last, I would say 20 to 30 minutes of cooking. And then some of that, the sauce will concentrate some more, get a little bit thick. If it gets too thick, you could always add a little bit of olive oil or water. But wait till you see how this comes out. You're going to love it. Let's talk a little bit about, since we were talking about garlic, let's talk a little bit about the garlic at the farmer's market. So it should have, this is called the sheath. And this should be all together. And that's why you'll know that most of every bulb on here is nice and intact. Okay, this one is compared to this one. You could see we have some damage there. I will, but I know to use these ones first because there's usually there's one good. This is hard neck. Garlic. So, and then you'll see there's many varieties, but this is hard necks, and that's because you can't, this piece that comes up through the middle, the neck that comes up is very hard, can't be bent. So this is a difficult one to braid if you want to braid it and save it, but also an excellent product. I like this variety of garlic because the cloves are a little bit bigger. Sometimes when the cloves are very small, it takes a long time to peel them and everything, and the yield is very small. It just takes a lot more work. So this particular one, so you can see we have a nice little product there. And then, like I said, when it is, you could see some decay on this one. It's already starting to rot. And that's because that sheath was broken and exposed to the air. And that's what we don't want to happen. So you'll still get a few good ones out of that broken one, but this is always going to give you a better product. And garlic is so good. Garlic is good for blood pressure. It's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties, just so good for so many things. You do have to eat a lot of it, and I think we've talked about that before. It's always fun to roast it, but it's a great addition to many of your products. The chicken burgers that we made a few classes ago, you know, one time I was almost hesitant. I thought, I'll just use garlic powder, but there's nothing. I did end up putting the crushed fresh garlic in there, and there's no substitute. The amount of flavor that you get from that is just, you can't compare it. So I always recommend using fresh when you can. So let's get back to our beets because we want to get those in the oven. So just picked these this morning, these beauties. Love these. So what we do is we pick them when they start to pop out of the ground. And what you'll see from, you know, when you're looking down at you'll see probably about this much exposed. So when I see that it's, you know, about 2.5, 3 inches in diameter, that's when I'll pick them. You know, if they've gone beyond that, sometimes they could tend to get woody. These are nice and tender. I'll just put it against there so you can see. It's about maybe the size of a baseball, small baseball, nice and round. What we're going to do is I'll adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to cut off this end. Yeah, and I could just tell they're so tender. Now, let's talk about the beet greens, and let's talk about how when we were saying about utilizing the whole product, right? So we're going to save the beet greens. Beet greens are wonderful. So high in vitamin K, provides over half of our daily requirement of vitamin K. These are also high in folate, high in vitamin C and potassium, very low in calories, the same with the beet, a little bit more concentrated K in here. And if you taste these, I would recommend that you do anything that you do with spinach, you could do with these beet greens. You could put it in your smoothie in the morning. It's not going to change the taste. It has a little bit more of an earthy taste. But they saute very well. We're going to saute some here today, and just like spinach. So we'll put a ton of leaves in there. It'll just shrink down to just a small amount. And then I like to saute them with some olive oil. You could even add garlic, a little bit of salt and pepper. Sometimes I like to wait to do that at the end. And at the end, I like to put on maybe a little bit of olive oil and some lemon juice to flavor them that way. But just such a great addition. And again, and you know what, you could even eat the stems as well. So my family just prefers the leaves, so that's what I usually do. So, and you just want to make sure you wash this real well. It's out of my own garden, but anyhow, here's the leaves, and you want to, so this is a beautiful one. Let's just look and see if I have any. This one, maybe somebody bit into this one, little critter in the garden. So I like to make sure that they're all nice and whole, you know, that they don't have any, like this one, obviously we're going to discard. If it's yellow or brown, we just want the ones that are intact and healthy looking. And the other thing, if I need to use the beet green before the actual beets are ready, you could always just cut those greens right off, and it's not going to harm it's not going to harm the actual fruit, the beet itself, vegetable, I should say. Actually, we're going to be using zucchini today, and that is technically a fruit. We don't think of it as one, but what does make our fruit is that hard, you know, the seeds and the stone in the middle, like avocados. So let's just get these things, and then we'll move on to our next. While this is washing, and these little ones are so tender. And okay, so in addition to putting them in our smoothies, in addition to cooking them, sauteing them, you know, beans and greens, wonderful for beans and greens. You could also, these baby leaves, I put in my salad mix. So when I go out to my garden, I have arugula, romaine, some red leaves, some green leaves, some mustard, and I just like to mix them all together. And I will definitely throw in some beet greens in there as well. And, you know, I even throw a couple of, I'll probably throw in basil, dill, makes for a really good, if you haven't tried that with your salad, I highly recommend it. It's adds more flavor than even your dressing will do. You know, just to have so much interest, so much more interesting than just an iceberg lettuce, you know, individual iceberg lettuce. So we will discard those, and we're just going to work on the beet right now. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do. We're going to just, what I've done is I've just discarded both ends. Okay, and then we're going to peel these. When I am boiling them, I do not peel them. I like to, it's so much easier when you're done, just to, they slip right out of the They slip right out of the skin. So if you, and remember, this is a root vegetable. We always want to start the root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, beets, turnips. We always want to start them in cold water and then cook them. But anyhow, if you, and I do that the same with my potatoes too. If I'm making a potato salad or something where I need to cook potato like that, I will boil them with the skin on after they're done cooking. Once you pierce them with a fork and they're tender, then what you'll do is you'll let them cool and you'll just take your paring knife and the skin should just slide off. It's effortless, so much easier than this. But today we're roasting these. So while we're doing this, let's talk about beets. Beets are high in folate, manganese, copper, and they contain nitrates and dietary nitrates. Hey, so you could see me. Dietary nitrates actually lower our blood pressure. So can you substitute these for blood pressure medication? No, but acutely they lower our blood pressure. So it's nothing that if you eat these, then you'll have, you know, a regular diet of these, you'll have low blood pressure all week. It's really when you're eating them and when you're digesting them. It's not something, it's just that acute time. So, but they are excellent for us. And that brings me to something else. We were talking about the vitamin K content of our beet greens. Let me just wash off our beet greens so we can get those started too. We talked about the vitamin K content, and I have many clients that are on warfarin or Coumadin, and what's a blood thinner, and they are concerned about the amount of K that they take, and that's for good reason, right? Because K is an anticoagulant, vitamin K. So unfortunately, they are abstaining from broccoli, from all these beautiful greens. And the thing about being on warfarin or Coumadin, you don't have to eliminate them from your diet. You need to work with your doctor. Typically, when you're on those medications, your doctor will take some routine blood work to make sure everything is okay. Okay, so what I would recommend is tell your doctor, hey, I eat a lot of leafy green vegetables and broccoli and other sources of vitamin K, and they will adjust that dose. So it's not that you have to eliminate them. You should have a consistent intake of them. So if you're consistently having these items, then you would want to communicate that to your doctor. You wouldn't want to do wouldn't want to have a bunch on one day and then not have any, or for a few period of time and then change that. And that's why they do check your blood. That's why they do check your blood work, probably monthly, just depends on your specific plan. But just to keep that in mind, if you do like, if this is a big part of your diet, you need to communicate it to your provider that, hey, I do like these things, and they will adjust that dose accordingly. So let's just get this last beet sliced or peeled rather, and we'll get these in the oven. We'll get our beet greens sauteed. And I do like to rinse these all off. And I like to rinse my hands off too. If you don't do it right away, sometimes it stains. So let's see, rinse this off. And we'll get these all sliced. So I'll just move that here. And if you've watched anything that we've done together, safety, safety, safety. Always create a flat edge first. You wouldn't want to try to cut a beet that was round. It's going to move on you, and you will could probably, you know, cut yourself. So let's get a bowl here. What we're going to do is we're going to slice our beets, and you know, as long as, okay, we want them uniform. Okay, we want them the same. So I'm going with about a 1/4 inch here. Okay, one gets away from you. You could try to, because why? Because we want them to all be done at the same time. When you have products that aren't uniform, they're going to cook at different times. So, or, you know, you may have to take some out because they're done already, and some, you know, that are undercooked. So it's best to try to get them as uniform as possible. Excellent. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put them in our bowl. We're going to add a little bit, about a teaspoon of olive oil, a little bit of kosher salt, and give them a stir. And you notice that I just rinsed them real lightly. I didn't soak them in water. You want to be very careful about how you wash your vegetables before you roast them in the oven. Because if you have too much water on these, they will never crispen. What we're looking for is a nice, let me grab our asparagus. What we're looking for is a nice, evenly browned product. Right now I have my oven on convect roast. So it'll get, you know, with convection, we have the fan in the back. Convection, just a dry heat, correct? Convection has a fan in the back of the oven that circulates the air around, you know, it comes from the back, it goes over the top and circulates like this. What does that result in? It results in a nice, evenly browned product. But you have to be aware too that since it is coming from the back to the front, you might get more browning in one place or the other. So you do have to rotate your pan maybe halfway through cooking. I think meats roast really well with convection. I always do that. They'll brown very nicely for you. If I'm cooking a prime rib or a filet or something like that, I always do that. Vegetables I always use on convect. What I don't use on convect is baking. We don't want to convect while baking. They will brown our cookies before they bake them. They'll brown our muffins, our buns, our bread, whatever, before the actual food is cooked. So we want to not do that. Also, let's show you, I'm going to do my asparagus and my beets together. Okay, so I have my asparagus on this half of the pan, and I'm just going to drizzle a small amount of olive oil. And I do, you know, sometimes for easier cleanup, I might put a piece of parchment down first before I do this. A little bit of kosher salt. Also, you could do some fresh cracked black pepper. And the other thing to remember is we want to have an even layer. We don't want to have, you know, they're not going to cook well if we have, you know, something like this going on. So you want to make sure everybody gets their own real estate here, that they're not on top of each other. And that way everybody will get equal attention. Of course, these little end pieces are going to get done faster because they run the ends. So they're going to be smaller. But this way, everything will get nice and browned at the same time. We'll give our asparagus a little toss. And this should all be about, the reason I'm doing it together is it should all be around the same time. It's probably going to take 10 minutes for all this together. So let's put that in the oven now. And we'll get that started. And then we will work on our next item up. Okay, next, let's get rid of this bowl here. Next, we're going to talk about zucchini. And zucchini is high in vitamin A, manganese, C, and also K, and folate, very high in folate, and also very high in antioxidants. Hold on, let me wipe up this sauce here. Today, I don't know if you probably, unless you haven't been paying attention, a lot of people are using zucchini noodles. And why? 17 calories per cup. How much does a cup of pasta have? 200 calories per cup. About 200 calories and probably 30 grams of carb. And zucchini is 17 calories and probably 4 carbs, 3 carbs. So big difference there. Of course, it's not going to taste exactly like pasta. It's not going to, right? It's not going to, we can't sacrifice over 175 calories and still get that same taste and texture that we can with pasta. But it's a nice alternative, right? It still takes well to sauces. It still does well with, you know, it'll stand up really nicely. So let's get one of those started. I cut one of our zucchinis in half today, and I have a hand spiralizer, and you can see I started to do some before class today, but there's different attachments. I have, for this one, there's several different attachments so I could get different size noodles. They also make attachments that you could put onto your mixer. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, you could do that. There's also, there's many companies that make mandolins that also have something on there that you can make they call these zoodles, zucchini noodles. So lots of opportunities there to do this. And hey, look, you could always, if you don't have any of these, this was less than $10 at a popular store that sells kitchen products. So really cost effective. I don't make them too often, so I didn't want to invest in the one with for the food processor. And the other reason is it's not that hard. It takes me 5 minutes. Yes, it does take a little bit of muscle, but so worth it. And let's get started. So basically, we just take it, I picked one attachment, and you have to make sure that your zucchini fits in there. Like I have some larger zucchinis, you would just have to cut them down. So you just put your zucchini on there, and you see it just spirals. Let's see. Can't do two things at one time. I'm trying to make sure that you could see what's going on. So let me just do some, and of course it helps when you have it sitting down versus trying to do it in the air and showing you that way. But I like these. I serve them a lot, especially because in the summertime we have so many zucchini. I'll occasionally make zucchini bread, something like that. But these noodles are so much fun. And I'll put tomato sauce on them, pesto sauce. I have a great recipe for a shrimp scampi over zucchini noodles. So something different, right? So I've already added a little bit of garlic to our pan. So we're just going to saute these. And I caution you, I have seen some recipes that say, go ahead, since my zucchini noodle is just probably a little bit thicker in diameter. But if you have something small, if you're getting something more of the angel hair size, maybe you can get away with just putting a hot sauce over it. Like if your spaghetti sauce is very hot, I've seen some recipes like that. I would not boil it. Boiling would be the last route because it's going to add so much liquid to it. Unless you really thoroughly salt your zucchini beforehand, which is really difficult to do because we're not cutting it. So a lot of, that's the great thing about zucchini. That's why it is so low in calories. It's full of water, which makes it such a great part of a healthy diet for weight management as well, because we're getting so much liquid in there but it's also filling. So let me finish doing this. So we can make the rest of our dish. So anyhow, what I'm just going to do is, like I would any scampi, I have some olive oil and garlic. Let's see here. And you may want to, we're just going on and on. You could see how I'm on the same zoodle, so to speak. So you may need to cut these in the skillet or on your plate. But that's enough just to get an example here. Let me show you what my skillet looks like. So you can see, beautiful. Okay, so not going to cook these too long, just going to add a little bit of olive oil to them. We'll get them on the cooking. I already have a little bit of garlic in my pan. Add a little bit more. And again, I'm going to use my little tool here just to get it nice and thin. Okay. I have one here that didn't quite get. We'll just add that there, and I'll put it on the stove. And it's going to do a medium high heat. And again, not going to take long at all. So we're just going to give that a quick stir. Then you could add anything you want to it at that point. You could add your pesto. You could add a tomato sauce. I've also seen, I don't know, you've probably tried the zucchini squash or the spaghetti squash as well, right? So we bake that in the oven. And then when you scoop it out, it's also very stringy, just like what we've done here today. So another nice option for a very low carb pasta. So while we're doing that, let me give that a little stir. And since we were talking today about utilizing the whole vegetable, we're gonna do something really fun next. So let's get this on, and let's also gonna start sauteing my beet greens. So just gonna say, we don't have to do these very long. You know, we just wanna get the garlic soft and get our zucchini soft. And let's just get out a, I'm gonna use something small here, just so you could get an idea of the beet greens, what they'll do. So I just put a little bit of olive oil in here. I washed them and we're just going to, just so you could see an example. I'm gonna leave them whole, stick them right in there. And again, very colorful. You know, we have the, you have that red vein of the stem in there. So that's gonna make it really nice. I'm just gonna put that on really low heat and I'm going to cover it. And that way it'll steam real nicely. So I'm just gonna put it on real low. Especially since we're not paying attention to it, right? So the next thing that I want to talk about, you don't see these too often, but you do see them at the farmer's market frequently. And that would be the flower of the zucchini, or if you'll find it on zucchini, you'll find it on butternut squash. I have some pumpkins in the garden. They also produce a beautiful flower. And what's nice about the butternut squash and the pumpkin, their flower is very fragrant. So it almost smells like perfume when you're walking past it in the garden, but it smells really nice in your cooking as well. So let me show you what I've done, talking about eating all of the plant that's available to us. You have to go out into the morning to your garden. Sometimes your farmer's market will sell them. So if you live in an area where they start it earlier in the day, that's where you're going to find these. So what I've done is, here's our flower. Okay. And it's a little bit wilted now because I picked it this morning. This was the male flower, which meant it had that huge stamen in there. So if it's early in your season, you may want to take out that stamen. You may want to get a Q-tip first, rub the stamen, and pollinate some of those female flowers yourself. Once you have an established crop and you have enough flowers and you have enough zucchini, then I would go ahead and you could just take that stamen out. And then I made a stuffing, and what the stuffing is just a little bit of, you could use ground turkey or ground beef, some sauteed onion, a cup of brown rice, and some parsley. And then what I do is I just put it in there and I give it a little turn and something like this. And I'll show you how many. So you usually get about, depending on how many plants you have, I usually get about 8 flowers a day. So let me just show you what those look like. So, and then I just put them in a pan and I cover them. I put a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of water. I'm going to give our zucchini noodles a stir. A little bit of olive oil, a little bit of water. And this looks really good. And you don't want to brown our zucchini noodles. Just want to saute them because you still want them to be al dente. I'll just turn that down. Okay, so I didn't think we would have enough time to do our flowers, but here you could see what they look like when they're all cooked. And I've taken one apart. So you just have these little flowers here, and I bake them on 350 for a half hour for 30 minutes with covered with foil, a little bit of water, a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and then I take the cover off and put it in for another half hour. Let that liquid come up. And how I tell when they're done is there's a little bit of the flower has some little soft bristles on it by the stem. Once those become soft, I know it's done. You don't want to touch into it, and you wouldn't want somebody to bite into it and you have those little hard bristles. Zucchini flowers have the same nutrition as zucchini. They're wonderful, very nutritious, just something else to do with that plant, right? So we've used the flower, we've used the actual zucchini. We can make zucchini noodles. We can a million things that we could do with zucchini, right? Great part of our dietary pattern. So let me move these over here. And I wanted to talk to you about garlic. So, we talked about the antioxidant properties and, also lowering LDL and total cholesterol, lowering blood pressure. You can take garlic tablets. They also have I think, an odorless garlic tablet. I mean, you will notice when somebody's taking a garlic tablet if you're talking close to them. So you may want to try the odorless one, still effective. So really a nice, overall thing to have. Like I said, we talked about how to pick them, how that sheath should be intact rather, so it's not exposed to the oxygen. That way, if we have them stored in a cool, dry place, I have them in a cool, dry place in my basement that's dark, that doesn't get a lot of activity in it. And I keep it temperature controlled to make sure it doesn't get too warm in there. And they will last me for a whole season, till I get garlic, till I harvest it again in July. So typically we plant it in the fall. The scapes start to come up in May, right? In June. So you could cut the scapes off and you could saute those. That would have been a great class too, talking about utilizing the whole plant. And then in July, when we pick them, after we see that maybe 2 of the scapes are brown, we'll pick it. And then you'll see that the sheath is intact. And then we let it dry for a couple of days, get all the big dirt off, make a little snip here, get the dirt off, and then tie them all together and we hang them up to dry. So I have a great recipe. We're not going to make it today, but I am going to serve it with the beets. I didn't think we'd have enough time with everything that we want to talk about, and I'll show it to you. And it's a delicious, just looks like a white sauce, right? But it is Greek yogurt. So we got high protein here. We're not going to use sour cream. Greek yogurt, tahini, lemon juice, garlic, and some dill. And what we did was we food processed the garlic first to get it really tiny, and then add the Greek yogurt and the tahini and the lemon juice. You may need to add a little bit of water too. Makes a nice dipping sauce for any of your vegetables. I like it for eggplant. I like it for cabbage. Roast cabbage is really good. So yeah, just some ideas to think about there. And let's plate up our zucchini noodles. So let's do is portion those out. Looks nice. So you can see how they've changed, how they're nice and soft. Oh, almost looks like sweet. So like I said, you may need to cut it, right? And it does cook down. But I didn't get too much liquid out of here, so which is good. And then we'll just, I had sauteed some shrimp earlier. We have that, and then we'll just a little bit of parsley on this. Makes a real nice little dish there. So we have our zucchini noodles, we have some sauteed shrimp, a little bit of fresh parsley on top. I would definitely recommend some, Parmesan cheese or anything like that. Makes a nice little product. And like I said, this also goes really well with a red sauce. And again, zucchini is only 20 calories a cup. So this is really nice if you're trying to manage your weight. You still want those meatballs in the red sauce. You could still do it if you swipe out something like this, like the zucchini noodle. I also like to do the riced cauliflower. That makes a good base for a lot of things that zucchini is good for substituting for pasta. You could also use the cauliflower, but I like the cauliflower too for anywhere that I might have used rice. In stuffed peppers, I have an excellent, we made it a couple weeks ago, the chicken fried rice, which was, cauliflower rice. So drastically decreased those carbohydrates in that, and lowered the calories and made it a carb balanced product, right? That's what we're looking for, some carb balance. Not that there's, we don't want carbohydrate in a diet. Carbohydrate is so important in our diet, right? But you want it to come from sources like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, whole pasta things. So that's where that should come from. Beans, legume family, nuts, all have that. Nuts are part of the legume family, but all of those are, even the legume family, it's a lot more balanced than the carbohydrate, right? So if we're taking a serving of almonds or cashews or any of those walnuts, they're going to have, pretty close to the same amount of carbohydrate as protein, just a really carbohydrate balanced food naturally, and that's why they're such a great snack. I want to talk about two more things before we take our items out of the oven. I want to talk about bringing some of these in. If you do get some basil at the farmer's market, or if you cut it from your garden, we talked about how to cut it from the garden so your plant stays bushy all summer and it keeps producing, right? We just don't want to lop it off. We want to take it carefully. So smells so good, by the way. Anyhow, what I like to do with my basil is I either sometimes I make a pesto. Oh, my beet greens are still on. I like to make a pesto with it, or I will wash it and dry it. And you'll see whenever I'm harvesting basil, I'll have my whole kitchen counter covered. Wash it, let it dry really nicely. I don't typically put it in the salad spinner because basil is so temperamental. It doesn't like to be wet. It doesn't like to be cold, or you'll see the leaves turn black. So it's something you have to work on and get it done right away. It's not something that you could put off with time. So anyhow, what I'll do is I'll take the leaves after they're thoroughly washed and dried and just food process them, and then measure out 2 tablespoonfuls, put them in some saran wrap and freeze them. And that way, when I'm making sauce or anything that calls for basil, I just take that out of the freezer. It's nice and green, it's ready to go, and it just, defrosts very quickly. And you could also, if you want to put it on something fresh, it'll be fine that way too. The other thing though, if I do want to sprinkle it on something, is I will take it and this was hanging up in my kitchen. And believe it or not, this was probably about this size a couple weeks ago. But the thing about when you dry things, you have to make sure that air can circulate around it or it will get moldy. I've made the mistake in the past of this wasn't quite dry. And if it's not quite dry, you'll see that you'll get some mold in there. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. But I don't know if you could hear it. You could hear how crispy it is. So it's ready. So what I'd like to do is I will just take this, I'll put it through a sieve, just a strainer that I have, an colander that I have that has very small holes, and I just keep pushing it in there, and I will put it in a glass jar. Same thing with my oregano. I like to take my oregano. Now, oregano grows so profusely in my garden that I have a ton of it. I probably have my whole table was covered with it. So what I will do is after I wash it, I will tie it, like I said, make sure it's dry. Then I will hang it, and when it's completely dry, I just crinkle it and push it through the colander with very fine holes, and then we'll have it for, I just put it in jars and we'll go through that. A nice glass jar keeps it nice and fresh. So let's take out our products. It's time to check on those. And let's see here. Okay, so first let's look at and you could hear that the asparagus is going crazy here. Let me move my cutting board. So, and it's all fork tender, it looks like here. And, if I wasn't talking to you, I would have turned these. But you could see they could even be turned and stuck back in for a little bit. They are fork tender though, and they're delicious. If you wanted to get them a little bit more browned, if you wanted to caramelize them, but look at the asparagus is definitely done. And you could see, it just pierces so nicely with a fork. So what I'll probably do is, I said it's been long enough, but I'll stick that back in. I'll take off the asparagus. And the beautiful thing about asparagus is, like I said, how many years it takes to grow. But after you have an established crop, you'll pick several every day. It will come up from late spring till all through summer. So this is what's wonderful about it's a very low maintenance vegetable. And, so rich in so many things. So it's just nice to have on hand. I typically roast it, I grill it. Those are the big things, working in a restaurant, we would make cream of asparagus soup, things like that. And this is our eggplant. Oh, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you could see how nicely look how nice it's cooked down. Look at that. How beautiful. So I'm probably going to stick it back in the oven. It's beautiful now. We could eat this, but I'm probably going to stick it in the oven just a little bit longer, uncovered, just to concentrate a little bit more. But this is fantastic. Oh, you're going to love this. And like I said, you could have easily added some zucchini to it, some potatoes. I typically, in a small, I'll post it in a small pan. I'll take and I'll do tomatoes, onions, zucchinis, potatoes, and eggplant, and bake that in a roasting pan for about an hour. It's wonderful, especially this time of year when the tomatoes are the juiciest. You can't do it all times of the year. So let's take a peek at our beet greens, which came out lovely. Where's my tongs? Oh, there they are. Use them for my zoodles. Okay. So I'm just going to adjust the camera so you could see these, how nicely they cook down. See, just like spinach. And, you know, you can let it cook. You could even wilt it a little bit more if you like. Tastes wonderful. Right now, I would just put a little bit of lemon juice on this. Oh my goodness. It is such a treat. Really nice tasting. Like I said, it's a little bit earthier than spinach, but it's just packed with nutrients. And like I said, you could also put it in a smoothie or something too. It'll grate up really nicely. So I see we're out of time. So sorry for all that. Just wanted to get it all in there and just share this with you because I am so excited about nutrition and eating fresh fruits and vegetables. So I hope you enjoy everything. I will put all the recipes on my website. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me and let me know. Have a great day and stay on the path to wellness. So long.